I wish I could say something positive about the Rings of Power, but at this point I can't. I have waited 7 long episodes and gave this show so many chances. By now it has become clear, with only the finale remaining, that it's just bad. And what is also pretty clear is that Galadriel is the main disaster.
Why, Elrond? You really have become a politician.
You make it sound so grim.
I'm not some courtier to be placated by idle flattery.
At the beginning, she was just an incredibly tedious, unengaging character with maybe like 1 or 2 facial expressions. But by the end of episode 7, it is proven beyond reasonable doubt that she's a genocidal maniac who does not care in the least for the well-being or survival of anybody, of any of the other characters.
Your kind was a mistake. Made in mockery. And even if it takes me all of this age, I vow to eradicate every last one of you.
What?
In the initial episodes, I could still question myself. Maybe the series is just poorly written, but there is hope for some characters. But by now, it is self-evident that Galadriel's story is maybe the very reason why this entire show is just bad. It makes no sense. Galadriel basically has no moral conflict that would drive her actions. There have been some half-hearted attempts to present an artificial moral dilemma for her. Maybe she's torn between the revenge she wants for the death of her brother and something else, something undefined as of yet. But by the end of episode 7, it is so clear that Galadriel is happy to even publicly reveal her murderous tendencies. She has shown no proclivity towards compassion or kindness or any other human emotion, and she's more than happy to sacrifice people's lives to pursue this very unconvincing goal of finding Sauron. In other words, basically, the very premise of her storyline is shaky at best. Episode 1 and episode 2 suggested that Galadriel is on a path of revenge for her brother's death.
And there, in the darkness, his vow became mine.
That she will persist in her desire to find Sauron against all odds, but also against all reasonable clues and signs in the universe.
Perhaps we would be wise to camp here, and tomorrow begin the journey home.
We are losing the light.
I mean, at some point she jumps straight into the ocean and seems to think that it's okay, she will swim 1,000 miles to the shore. I mean, obviously she should have died, she didn't, fine. But as we are going through the episodes, there is no trace of Sauron in the entirety of Middle-earth. How does it make sense for her to keep clinging to this hope that Sauron is somewhere out there? And then finally, in episode 6, we learn from Adar that actually Adar killed Sauron, or so he believes, and why should she not believe him? Which means that this entire motivation that has been assigned to Galadriel's journey is pointless. Essentially, Sauron, her alleged suspected opponent, is dead. Or there's another option that Halbrand is Sauron and he's now her best friend, so that's even worse. So now we're at this point where we know that Galadriel is the most murderous of all characters in the series, and let us bear in mind that this includes the orcs, who, compared to Galadriel, they seem like this poor ostracized group of victims with an unfortunate skin condition. And yet, at the same time, the story attempts to portray her as a wise, ancient being, a leader of armies, a powerful force for good.
And look at you now. Commander of the Northern Armies, warrior of the Wastelands. I half expected you to arrive caked in grime and mud.
So what happens is, as one could predict, she ends up being the most boring, nonsensical character in this entire series. But sadly, also apparently she serves as the main anchor of all events that are meant to unfold in season 1. So that leads to a serious problem. By episode 4, you know she is mostly an artificial aggregate created from convenience, and she resonates with nobody. If she is so good and wise, why would she be leaving behind her fellow elves in a frozen wasteland? If she's so smart, why can't she be diplomatic, tactful, and persuasive when dealing with the Queen of Númenor?
Speak, elf.
Galadriel of the Noldor, daughter of the Golden House of Finarfin, commander of the northern armies of High King Gil-galad.
So it comes as no surprise that she ends up being the most hated character in Rings of Power so far. You can neither sympathize with her, nor can you understand her. Her actions are so far removed, so dissociated from any reasonable human deep emotion, that it becomes absurd. Yet the scenes indicate with non-verbal clues that we should be in awe of Galadriel, of her experiences, and that she's special, and that she's worthy of many lengthy, obsolete scenes that honestly could have been just skipped.
Quarter day's ride. What is it you seek?
Did you say ride?
But there is more to this disaster than Galadriel simply not being a cohesive character. The more pressing issue is that she's also cast as the hero who's meant to drive the storyline, and if anything, her very presence in this series is what makes it slow and stale. If you just look at the actual chain of events and how they are unfolding, barely anything happens because of her. I mean, she does jump off the boat, she meets Halbrand, and she ends up on Numenor, and it's so tedious to watch. Honestly, the dialogue scenes with Galadriel are an example of how lack of action in her character is what brings the level and the pace of this entire show down.
How fares the quest for peace?
Better than expected.
What happened?
Dispute about a woman.
Halbrand,
Don't start.
you do not belong on this island.
If there's one of us that doesn't belong here, Alf, it's you.
Of course, she ends up being the center of the most cringe-worthy clips of this series so far.
There is a tempest in me. It swept me to this island for a reason, and it will not be quelled by you, Regent.
You could say that, as a rule of thumb, a good hero should be dealing with a central moral conflict that drives his behavior and his actions, and that will ultimately lead the hero to overcome his weaknesses that he does not know he has, so that he can then go on to become a better, integrated version of himself. But not Galadriel. She already has all the experiences of pain possible in this entire universe.
I am grateful you have not known evil as I have. But you have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen.
And she has acquired wisdom, which she will happily point out to her best friend or any other character, and she will scorn all those who wish to oppose her point of view.
I have pursued this foe since before the first sunrise bloodied the sky. It would take longer than your lifetime, even to speak the names of those they've taken from me. So letting it lie is not an option.
So she's this new type of hero, one that makes no mistakes, causes no catastrophes, and basically has nothing in her life that would necessitate reflection or change. And this now includes getting people killed by bringing them to a site of volcano eruption, but she feels no guilt. If at this point she were to go on and fall in love with Halbrand, and if Halbrand is in fact Sauron, I don't think this could save Galadriel as a character from being what she is, honestly. It's just bad. She is unlikable, she's boring, nobody in the audience can really empathize with her, and if she dies, at best, I would feel indifferent. Honestly, a bit relieved that I no longer have to be subjected to her cringeworthy dialogue. And so I wonder, if each of the episodes had a budget of $85 million, where did the money go? Because clearly it was not allocated to script.